Hello, I'm going to talk about the Sigma 10-20 EXDC HSM lens. I'm going to talk about the build quality, technical performance, and I'm going to say my opinion in the very end. I'm also going to show some example images. I've had this lens for 1.5 years and I am using it on my Nikon D300. I like the location of the zoom ring and manual focus ring. The zoom ring is closest to the camera body with a nice smoothly twist and a rubber grip. So it has the manual focus ring, which is more on the outside on the lens. This lens has no OS, which is image stabilization. I personally manage fine without it. If I take pictures of landscapes at midday, I always have a shutter speed of over 1/500th of a second, and then I don't need it. During the evening, I tend to have a shutter speed of around 1 second or so, and then I don't need a OS because I am using a tripod. If you need the OS, then you are using a shutter speed around 30 to maybe 100 with freehand and no tripod. Some people believe that the manual focus on this lens is a little slow, but I think that it is only good because this is a landscape lens and you have plenty of time when you are taking pictures with it. It is easier to set the correct focus manually when the focus ring is a bit slower. It is easier to find the correct focus point. If the lens had a faster manual focus, it would be more difficult to find the right focus point. This lens has an HSM feature, which means hypersonic motor. It has a fast autofocus. The HSM feature on this lens is very similar to the Nikon's AFS function. The autofocus on this lens is nice and quiet, and it is very fast for a landscape lens to be. You can see how fast the autofocus is right here, 10mm from infinity and back. Then from close focus to infinity and back. Then at a range of 20mm, infinity and back. You can see how fast the autofocus is. This lens is quite short, only 81mm in the length, and it has a weight of 470 grams. It has a filter size of 77mm, and it is important to use a UV filters because, as you can see, the front glass bulges outwards, and that makes it quite easy to get scratches. And so the DC on this lens means that the image circle fits most DSLR camera bodies. The focal length 10-20mm provides a horizontal line of 61 degrees to 99 degrees with a DX camera such as the Nikon D300, which I got right here, or other similar camera bodies. The lens has a minimum focus distance of 24 centimeters. It's quite close, but obviously there is no macro possibilities as it only has a focal length of 20mm. But still you can make some quite creative photos by being that close to a subject. A bad thing about this lens is the light fall off performance. Wide open at a range of 10mm, you can see a whole stop or a stop and a third of light fall off. Light fall off is brightness differences from the center of the image compared to other places in the image. And this problem is worst at a range of 10mm, and it gets better the closer you get to the focal length of 20mm. I have noticed this problem, but until now I have managed fine. Even though I am taking pictures of sunsets and I do notice the light fall off in the corners, I managed to crop the corners away because the lens is obviously sharp enough. But of course, the more you underexpose the image, the greater the light fall off gets. And in those situations, it can be difficult to crop it away because then you need to crop away so much pixels, and that affects the picture quality. In this image of the sunsets, you can see in the corners the brightness differences compared to other places in the frame. I'm quite happy with the sharpness of this lens. Of course, it is sharpest in the center comparing to the edges when you have a focal length of 10 millimeters. But when you have a focal length of 20, I dare say that it is as sharp in the corners as it is in the center of the frame. The Sigma lens 10 to 20 millimeters is a good lens. That was the reason I bought it, because it was quite cheap, also quite fast and sharp. Of course, it has some downsides, but that's because it did not cost much, so I couldn't expect something else. I have had this lens for 1 year now, and I have used it in several of situations, and I am quite happy with it, and I do recommend this lens.